Welcome to Tux TV. I'm your host, Jimmy Tux. I have a really good show for you today. This is going to be an essay, a little storytelling, and how we got here. So this atheist, with a hard heart with the colloquial term, is like reading an email from a Nigerian prince and explaining to the victims of the scam that they should stop helping the prince. The victims quote a sentence from the email as evidence that they're not victims. I am free of being a victim of the Bible.
Of those. I just lost the game, the game. And of course now I have bad news for you and everyone who's watching this. You guys just lost the game too. So
Verily, that when I preach the gospel, I may make the gospel of Christ without charge, that I abuse not my power in the gospel. For though I be free from all men, yet have I made myself servant unto all, that I might gain the more.
not know you're playing. And thus I must apologize to the people who I just introduced the concept of the game to.
And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without the law, as without the law, being not without law to God, but under the law to Christ, that I might gain them that are without law.
You're going the wrong way!
To the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak.
Recognizing this about the game, that we're all playing it and we're all losing it, has made me realize that what's really important is that we're playing the right game, because you can't win.
I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some.
I want to make an equivalency of how in the beginning, Genesis 1 through 11,
Bit of distilled wisdom about the folly of humanity.
these verses by Paul are going to have an equivalence of the first slave known to mankind, according to the biblical narrative.
To be my own master. Such a thing would be greater than all the magic and all the treasures in all the world.
And I want to compare a Nigerian prince and an email that they would send to the Bible. And I want to compare the writings and the expectations and the authority of a prince as compared to a God, as it compared to a Jesus, as it compares to Paul being anything he can, including being a servant, so that he can garner a lot of people. He can be whatever he wants to be to whoever he needs to be, so he can garner those people as what I refer to as a slave. And we're going to focus on the first slave ever in existence.
Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant.
Freedom.
God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant.
Freedom.
This is a Genesis essay named The Slave. Story from Shem to Abraham, a reflection on slavery in the Bible, especially early biblical narratives. Shem, one of Noah's sons and an ancestor of Abraham, represents a lineage where owning slaves became a part of life. As societies evolved, slavery emerged and normalized within social and economic structures. This development is reflected in the biblical narrative, particularly in the story of Abraham, who inherited slaves as a part of his family's household. In the evolution of slavery in the biblical times, initially after the flood, with only Noah and his sons and their wives surviving, slavery is irrelevant. The focus was on the survival and repopulation. However, this human society grew and developed. So did social structures, including slavery. By Abraham's time, slavery was established and accepted, and references to Shem's descendants owning slaves reflect the evolved societal norms. In the role of the biblical writers, influenced by the societal norms, including slavery in their narratives, is a reflection of contemporary social structures.
Terrible. But oh, to be free.
These stories project societal norms back in earlier times, offering insight into the historical and cultural context of the authors. The human and divine interaction that is going on during Noah's curse of Canaan in Genesis 9:25 through 27 can be seen as both symbolic and prophetic, reflecting future relationships in God's plan. Noah, as a righteous man, chosen by God, pronounces the curse with an authority understood to be in alignment with the divine will. This interaction between human agency and divine sovereignty elucidates the complex interplay between human actions and God's overarching plan within the biblical story. So this brings us to the narrative from Shem to Abraham, illustrates how slavery emerged and normalized over generations, while the immediate post-flood context makes slavery implausible. yet instructive. Societal development led to such practices. Biblical writers, influenced by their cultural context, including these realities in their stories, help us understand that the text is complex interplay of human and divine interactions. So today, we examine the early chapters of Genesis, from creation to Noah's descendants, and consider a provocative perspective. What if these stories were used to justify subjugation, leveraging spiritual authority to establish societal norms?
Bible's inerrancy from society's inception.
The important part is number 4. My book is without error in all of its teachings about the events of world history. All the history in my book?
Inerrant.
That perpetuate servitude. In the Genesis creation narrative, Genesis 1 through 11, there's rich and symbolism of theology that tells of creation, the fall, the flood, and the repopulation. Yet hidden within these narratives are elements used to justify inequality and servitude.
It's terrible.
But oh, to be free.
In the curse of Canaan, Genesis 9:20 through 27, Noah's curse on Canaan, declaring he will be the lowest of slaves to his brothers. This curse has been historically used to justify the subjugation of Canaan descendants. Consider this. What if this story was a spiritual catfishing scam, manipulating divine authority to establish social hierarchies, favoring some and oppressing others?
About hooking you in with tidbits they find on social media and playing with your mind to send money versus...
So, what is spiritual catfishing? A manipulation of the divine for human ends. The curse establishes a hierarchy, placing Shem and Japheth above Canaan, used to justify subjugation of entire groups. Framing the curse as coming from Noah, a man chosen by God, gave divine endorsement to the subjugation and manipulating authority to control. This narrative perpetuated inequality, cited to justify slavery, colonialism, racial discrimination, embedding injustices into the society under divine guise. Let's reflect on Genesis. Be mindful of how spiritual narratives can be used to manipulate. Critically examine the text and their interpretations throughout history. Seek justice, equality, and love, aligning with truth. So let's question the interpretations perpetuating inequality and injustice. The Bible, they don't embrace equality or work towards justice. So I come to this conclusion. Genesis 1 through 11 sets the stage for humanity's story, but we must ground against misuse of these narratives, reject spiritual catfishing, and strive for justice, challenging interpretations that perpetuate inequality. The exploration of authority and trust highlights deception's power in shaping human behavior and societal norms. Be agents of change and reflect on truth and justice. So let's compare the curse of Canaan and the Nigerian prince scam. Both manipulate authority, and it manipulates trust to establish control and gain an advantage. In the curse of Canaan, contextually, Genesis 9:25 through 27, Noah curses Canaan, establishing a social hierarchy with Shem and Japheth above their nephew Canaan. The manipulation is from Noah and his divine authority to justify subjugation of Canaan's descendants, and the impact is historically used to justify slavery and racial discrimination. In the Nigerian prince scam, the context is a modern scam where an individual poses as a Nigerian prince, offers a large sum of money in exchange for a small upfront payment. The manipulation comes when it exploits trust and greed by presenting an authoritative and lucrative opportunity, and the impact causes financial loss and identity theft. Now, let's make a comparison between these. Both techniques manipulate perceived authority with Noah's divine authority versus a scammer's royal status to deceive and to control. With the purpose, this curse establishes long-term societal hierarchies. There isn't a currency to be sought between Shem and Abraham.
And don't think it's the same old Nigerian prince scheme.
Really what these are really finely tuned, sophisticated schemes that are targeted to separate you from your money.
But the free manipulation of labor back then would be similar as monetary values scammers seek immediate financial gain of today.
Is all about mind games.
This region is far more focused on that social con, on that trick.
And he says those mind games are
This impact. This curse shaped historical societies and structures. The scam directly impacts individuals and their victims and their families. Both scenarios highlight the enduring power of deception in shaping human behavior and societal norms. The main takeaway of all of this. In Genesis 1 through 11, the earth has just been wiped clean by a flood and survived as a family. God has gotten his mulligan, and for all that effort, I leave you with this thought. The first child mentioned in the post-flood world is a servant of servants to his uncles because his dad, Ham, didn't do something to his grandfather, Noah. Is this divine, or is this the Genesis slavery scam written by humans and the foundation of Abraham and 4.1 billion followers of Hebrew, Christian, and Islam, plus many more rooted into this ancient scam, still deceiving today. Botai bless.
It's terrible. But oh, to be free.
Here's your moment of Zen.